Finishes and factions catching action.
Hello there, and welcome to Finishers and Factions does Friday Night SmackDown. This was the final weekly episodic television show from before we hit Elimination Chamber. So we find ourselves in the Scotiabank Arena in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And as ever, my name's Adam, and with me is my ever faithful co-host Rich. Rich, how's it going?
It's all good, mate. You?
Yeah, I'm all good, mate. I'm all good.
Good.
So yeah, Friday Night SmackDown.
Yeah, and it started with a bit of a bang. To be fair, we jumped right into it with a recap VT about WrestleMania's announcement of next year's WrestleMania being in New Orleans. And then it carried on into The Rock with his calling out of Cody Rhodes to basically find out that he doesn't want the championship belt, he wants Cody's soul, and that we'd find out a little bit more from Cody about that a little bit later on before they meet at Elimination Chamber tomorrow night.
Yeah, this is it. So, and after this little sort of VT has run its course, we then see a clip of, or I'm assuming it was live footage of Cody Rhodes sort of walking backstage where he is guided to his very own personal locker room.
He looked a little bit taken back by this, didn't he, until he gets told it was a courtesy of the final boss. So he kind of was getting a little taste of things to come if he chooses to accept The Rock's offer and give The Rock his soul.
Yeah, I mean, is a personal locker room really worth your soul? Or
I mean, I'm sure the personal locker room is probably one of the smaller of the things that is coming for Cody if he decides to accept Rock's offer. I mean, we know how generous Rock can be.
Yeah, this is true. We also know how vindictive he can be.
Oh, yeah. But that man has enough money to be as petty as he wants to be and really not care. So, you know. I mean, if I had that sort of money, I'd probably be really petty as well and not give too many fucks, I'm not going to lie.
In fairness, you don't need that amount of money to be petty.
No, you're not wrong. I don't need that amount of money to be petty, and I certainly don't need that amount of money to give zero fucks.
Yes, this is true. Right, we went from there to an in-ring promo.
Yeah, we got to see Trish Stratus come into the ring to have a little conversation with the Toronto crowd. Obviously, it's her home crowd. She is a Hall of Famer. And she's getting a little bit of crowd work in, I'm guessing, before her match tomorrow night with Tiffy Stratton against Nia Jax and Candice LeRae.
Yeah, and I very much got the impression that she was a lot more relaxed than we see some people that are on these TV shows week in, week out.
Mm. But she does mention
it was only ever really highlighted when she did this promo, and it was a case that I saw how relaxed she was, thinking back to even later on when there are other promos being cut, you can sort of see how tense everybody is.
Yeah.
Whereas I think if she was any more relaxed, she'd have been asleep.
Well, she hasn't really got anything to lose, has she? Like, she's already a Hall of Famer. They can't take away the fact that she's a 7-time WWE Women's Champion. You know, she's in her hometown, so they're not going to give her too much. They're going to give her plenty of leeway anyway. And she's doing them a favour, I suppose. Like, I wouldn't have said 25 years after she debuted on WWE TV that we'd still see Trish Stratus coming into the ring and making appearances and having matches.
Yeah, and in fairness, despite the fact that she's had 25 years of WWE involvement to more or lesser degrees.
Obviously, a lot of that has been out of the ring more recently, but she's still been involved within the business quite a lot.
Yeah, and it can't just be me that thought, do you know what? Actually, considering she's knocking on for 50 years old, she don't look half bad still.
I suppose it's what happens when you get sun, sea, and sand. I mean, she spent a lot of her time out in California at the moment, didn't she? So that's the one place where you can find all three of those.
That is very true.
Yeah, well, she basically comes out, gives herself a... Well, I find it quite fitting, actually. She give Lillian Garcia a thanks for her introduction, and she made a reference about, what year is this? The Rock's back, I'm in the ring, and you've got Lillian Garcia on announcement. Like, this is pretty cool. I didn't look too much into when the last time that happened was, but I'm guessing you probably got a good sort of 10 to 15 years on it.
Well, yeah, this is it. It's it is a bit odd. It feels like a bit of a blast from the past because, as she mentions, it's Lillian Garcia announcing. Mm-hmm. Trish Stratus is in the ring and Rock's getting into it as well. We may as well be back in the fucking Attitude Era.
Well, yeah, and she did. I found it quite interesting, quite a nice little sort of touch from Trish as well. When she pointed out to the young woman in the crowd that actually her dad probably had a poster of her on the wall. And the dad's there like, yeah, it's the really big one. And she's like, I know which one you're talking about.
And she was able to even quote which one it was.
She was. So, I mean, yeah, I think I probably had that same poster. I'm sure you did at one point as well.
He's
pleading the fifth.
Yeah, pretty much. And yeah, I just got a very sort of general sense of genuine gratitude for being able to have a career as long as that, because there are wrestlers in the industry that don't make it to WWE that don't have a career even half that.
Yeah, no, of course. And I mean, I'd be more than grateful to take a career off in that sort of business if I was sort of 10 years younger.
Yeah, you and me both.
Yeah, I'd do the Maverick Logan Paul and buy my way in. I'd give Vince McMahon a big old bag of fuck all, because that's what I had about 10 years ago.
So that's pretty much what I've got now. So
big old bag of fuck all. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
But we didn't just get to see Trish Stratus out at this, and Lillian Garcia in this opportunity. We actually had a few special guests come out with this one as well. And let's say special guests. We got to see Tiffy Stratton for some Tiffy time. I did like the custom jerseys they had on. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I haven't had the gall to have a look to see how quickly they went on eBay.
Right. They've either gone on eBay or they've gone straight in someone's slap tank.
Oh, yeah. It's one or the other.
Let me just have a little
look.
It's
one or the other.
Trish Stratus, Toronto, blue top. There's lots of trading cards with Trish Stratus on eBay in America at the moment. There is a photograph of them stood from behind in the two tops last night from SmackDown, but there isn't the tops as of yet.
Ah, fair enough. In fairness, I've got to be the one to point it out. I'm convinced that Tiffany Stratton's ring gear gets smaller every week.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with that. They're I
mean, there's every wonder that woman has had at least one wardrobe malfunction in the time that she's been
champion,
WWE Women's Champion.
Yeah.
It's every wonder she's not having one every week.
I mean, I'm not sure Netflix would be too impressed with that, I'm not going to lie. Surprised they've not got in trouble for as many as they've had recently.
They just up the rating for it and just be like, yeah, fuck it, we've upped the rating. You let your kids watch it, go for it.
Yeah, pretty much. But no, so yeah, we got to see a bit of Tiffy time. Talking about, again, they came out talking about their match tomorrow night. And I must admit, I turned off a little bit when Tiffy Stratton came out. I'm getting a little bit bored of her. I'm not sure if it's her voice or her, like the gimmick that she's going with, but yeah, her being women's champion is getting very thin very quickly with me. Or just the amount of how much we're seeing her, which is weird because there's, we get interrupted by a third person, or a third and a fourth person to be fair, who seems to also be getting shoved down our throats quite a lot at the moment, which is Chelsea Green with Piper Nevin. And
yeah, they come out more or less to basically, well, it's more or less an opportunity for Chelsea Green to run her chops.
I mean, she's very good at doing that. She is very good at cutting a promo, but yeah, all we're getting from Chelsea Green at the moment is a lot of running a mouth and not a lot of boots to asses.
No, and this is sort of demonstrated perfectly within this because she comes out, runs her chops, despite being Canadian herself.
Oh, she
decides to
proper
run down Canada.
Doesn't she?
I mean, it's come to something when you've got a Canadian running down Canada.
I mean, it's a great heel move. Like,
100%. I can imagine
go in as a Canadian and
just
and rip the fuck out of the Canadians. And yeah, it's great heel material.
It is, but I can imagine she wanted to crawl out of her skin afterwards.
Oh well, yeah, I'm sure they gave her a hot shower somewhere. You can't get away from that. That's on Netflix.
But yeah, it's a case that she comes out, runs her chops, runs down everything she could possibly get sort of work into the conversation, and then the minute that Tiffany Stratton actually suggests that they go into a match tonight,
she tries to run.
Shit, no.
I'm busy. Well, she was supposed to have a match tonight anyway, wasn't she? Because she was told by the general manager that she wasn't going to Elimination Chamber, but she was still going to Toronto, and she had a match against a mystery opponent or an unknown opponent at that time. So she was supposed to have had a match. I thought this was what we were going to get, was then that sort of like her and Trish maybe, or you have the four-way of them like in a tag match.
I mean, we've obviously had. Trish Stratus sort of issues the challenge to Nick Aldis. It's like, if you're a fan of this idea, send a ref down. And about 2 seconds later, we have a ref running towards the ring, and it's like, oh shit, this is happening.
Yeah.
And we open the opening match of this SmackDown card was almost like an inadvertent champion versus champion match, because obviously Chelsea Green is the current women's US title holder,
and Tiffy Stratton's got the women's SmackDown title.
Yeah, so we had a champion versus champion match to open SmackDown, which was, don't get me wrong, it's a blinding way to open any episode of anything.
On paper, this match was better than it actually was, I feel.
Well, it's worth mentioning, because we'll come to it eventually anyway, that this episode of SmackDown it certainly doesn't seem like it was as it was originally planned. Yeah,
so a lot of things that have been advertised to happen this week did not happen, and that is because they reworked some stuff for the United States title, due to, I believe you said it had now been vacated since, didn't you? Due to Shinsuke Nakamura's brother dying.
So there's a rumor floating, right? I don't know how true it is because I don't think WWE have officially confirmed it yet. But there is a rumor going around that there has been a title vacated within WWE, and the overwhelming consensus is that it makes sense because of Shinsuke Nakamura losing his brother in the last week and having to take some time out. It's a case that he may well have vacated the title because it hasn't. We've commented on it in the past. It hasn't been seen an awful lot up until recently.
No, it's been a lot of matches building up for a shot at Shinsuke, but we've not really seen Shinsuke until he appeared. Was it last week on SmackDown?
Yeah, so he's made some appearances in the last few weeks.
And a few VTs and stuff like that, but we haven't had a match.
But not really, not had him with any sort of in-ring action, which, to be honest, I'm not that upset about, as I'm not a huge Shinsuke Nakamura fan. Even when he was at the height of his hype, it was a case that I just didn't see the appeal.
Yeah, I've always found him quite boring, to be fair. His matches are normally the ones that I used to go and put the kettle on.
Yeah, there's very little to like about the guy, and that's not dislike him in a heel sort of way. There's just nothing to like. There's not a lot for me to like. He's got
no substance to his character at all.
No, and yeah, it's a case that it didn't work.
Yeah, so because of the rework they've done on the episode, some matches were very
last minute.
There was a lot of, you could tell things were being changed as it was going on. And, you know, after, I will explain a little bit more sort of how they do it a little bit later into the episode, because we've still got this Tiffany Stratton Chelsea Green match to finish discussing.
Yeah.
They did point out during the commentary at some point during this match that they had 14,252 in attendance at the Scotia Centre this evening for SmackDown, which means and I think they pushed it as standing room only, didn't they?
So I don't remember them mentioning about standing room only. That was more for NXT.
Episode. That's the one, yeah. But no, this one was definitely. They gave us a number, so they must have been very close to being sold out, if not sold out.
Yeah, very much so. But yeah, so when the ref came down to the ring, made the match official, we then seemed to have gone to an ad break. We came back from the ad break to see Chelsea Green in control.
I really hate it when
then later
cut the ad breaks out and we lose half of the match. It really bugs me.
Well, at one point they were doing it where the Americans would go to an ad break, we would lose commentary but keep the picture,
which I enjoy.
And they've stopped doing that now.
They have, and it's annoying because we end up coming back from ad breaks and it's like, oh, what happened to the start of the match? And then they try and put in a really poorly timed, while you were on the ad break, this is what we saw. And you're like, well, great, you could have showed me that 3 minutes ago when I came back from the ad break, not now when I've forgotten there was an ad break.
Yeah, and I'm going to be honest, I've got a theory that the Americans are probably the reason why we stopped getting that. I think there are some people online that have flapped their gums about the fact that, when the Americans go for an ad break, we can still see what's going on so we don't miss anything. And
the Yanks have kicked off.
The Yanks have kicked off, essentially saying that it's not fair that we have to suffer ad breaks because it's on cable TV or it's on a station, it's being broadcast on a station that requires ad breaks and things like that we miss out and everybody else doesn't. Because the WWE is an American-based corporation, it is a case that
Yeah.
they will adhere to their home audience.
Oh, exactly. Wouldn't blame them. I'd do the same thing.
Oh no, precisely. I mean, any business person worth their salt you're gonna appeal to your core audience, which in this case is the American audience. So it makes complete sense. It's just really annoying for us because we had a taste of what it could be like, and now it's been snatched away. So yeah, we're a little bit bitter about it, but we're not gonna.
I was going to say, a bit like Chelsea Green's Elimination Chamber appearance. It was teased and then it got snatched away.
Yeah, it was teased and then snatched away for very good reason.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, what did you make of the match itself? We've sort of digressed away from it on a couple
I've got
of
the
occasions.
fact it was quite it was a very well balanced, very athletic, technically wrestled match with, some really nice sort of high spots within the match. I don't think they got enough time really before, to actually have the match before the next stage of it came in, where obviously they were interfered by Candice LeRae and Nia Jax. Which I'm getting fed up of seeing those two as well, to be fair. Like, just let them have a match. Interfere every so often, fine. It does not need to be every time Tiffy goes near the ring that we need to see Nia and Candice LeRae.
Well, the unfortunate thing for Nia Jax is that I struggle to remember a time when she wasn't a heel character.
Yeah.
That the entire reason she remained relevant is because she's a bully.
Pretty much. I can't actually think of a heel Nia Jax, of a face Nia Jax, to be fair.
No, and even just like, yeah, she's always been a heel, and she's always been the bully heel, and it always means that she interferes in matches, and she sort of asserts herself where necessarily she wouldn't have been cast in that role at that point. And
don't get me wrong, I get the process behind it, but every match, like, come on, you might as well just join. Kind of feels like she's jealous that these people are getting more matches than she is, so she's having to interject herself into those situations.
And that is a lot of Nia Jax's shtick in general, really, is that she's it's born of a lot of jealousy, because for lack of a better way of putting it, the prettier people get more opportunities than she seems to, even though from a physical standpoint she's very dominant. She is
reasonably talented.
Yeah, but it's a case that just nobody ever seems to look her way, so there is an element of jealousy in it.
Yeah, I suppose.
But yeah, I mean, there was a few as you say, it's the match sort of, I'm assuming it ends in a no contest. The only reason that I'm assuming no contest is because...
Yeah, I put it down as a DQ finish, but...
Well, the only reason I didn't put it down as a DQ fit is that normally if it's a DQ, it's announced as DQ with the winner announced. But that wasn't the case.
No.
So I put this down as a no contest, and in fairness, despite the fact that Candice LeRae and Nia Jax were the ones that ran in, by the time this match ended, or by the time this little run-in ended, they were the ones that were on the back foot.
Yeah, they ran in, they tried causing well, they did start beating down on Trish Stratus, who was ringside. Was she ringside for the match? Or was she in the crowd?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was ringside,
she was ringside.
She? They started beating her down, but they still managed. Yeah, they got their ass handed to them on a plate, and they disappeared.
They got their asses handed to them by a nearly 50-year-old woman in 4-inch heeled boots.
Yeah, in her home. Yeah, I mean, she is probably one of the most well-known female Hall of Famers. So. Yeah,
and I mean, this is the same
she's
woman
still going to be able to go.
this is the same woman that I think it was last year managed to wrestle the Royal Rumble in Ugg
boots. Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, absolutely.
you know that
nuts.
she turns up ready for work in whatever it is that she's wearing. It's a case that it really doesn't make any difference.
Oh yeah, she's told you're getting in the ring. She's getting in. She's like, oh well, okay, I'm in my pajamas. Well, guess what? She's getting in the ring in her pajamas. Didn't CM Punk run down to the ring one year in just a towel and a shower cap at a
yes,
PLE event?
Yes, he did. I forget why. I think it might have been Hell in a Cell.
Possibly.
But yeah, so
we went from that match in ring to a backstage sort of Nick Aldis. Well, was it? It wasn't quite in his office, was it?
I put this down as a VT because it was all sort of obviously pre-recorded. This wasn't him.
Yeah, it wasn't a live interview. It was pre-recorded VT. So basically, Nick Aldis explains what's going to happen for the rest of the episode. Basically, pinpointing the rework for the United States Championship, and he's bringing in a tournament for the night. So there are 6 people involved in this tournament. We've got LA Knight, who is ending up in a singles match against Santos Escobar for a qualifying match into a triple threat at the end of the evening, where you've got a match.
There's a match between Carmelo Hayes and Braun Strowman in exactly the same way, and also it's announced as a match between Andrade and Solo Sikoa.
Yeah, to be the final one in the triple threat match to become the #1 contender for Shinsuke Nakamura's United States title.
Which it wasn't until we found out that Shinsuke Nakamura's brother had passed away that this sort of made sense.
Yeah, I saw it on social media the day. So, yeah, I saw this on social media on Saturday before I'd watched SmackDown. So,
and the day, a few weeks prior, the only reason this didn't really sort of make sense, and I don't think they really thought about it from a continuity standpoint, is that LA Knight had already wrestled a match to become #1 contender. He's then having to re-wrestle in a tournament to maintain that position. So that was the only bit that didn't it didn't stick the landing for me. But the storyline work for this was that apparently there's been a lot of infighting between the 6 gentlemen involved in the tournament over the #1 contendership for the US title. I was one of the first to think to call bullshit on it, because Solo Sikoa has never expressed any interest in the US title. Andrade certainly hasn't. Carmelo Hayes is fighting just to win matches. Braun Strowman is being trotted out every week or every fortnight to get a payday, and Santos Escobar has been more focused on the tag team division than anything else.
Well,
so
I saw this lining up in a certain way where I thought we were going to get Strowman, Fatu, and Strowman, Solo, and Knight when it was first announced. And then I thought those 3 people were going to go into the triple threat match for the end of it. Obviously, the next thing we see after Nick Aldis announces these matches is that backstage conversation between Jacob Fatu, Tama Tonga, and Solo Sikoa, where Solo basically tells Jacob, "Take my spot. I'm not really that bothered. I'll help you out. You'd be better with the title." And
this is Solo Sikoa still trying to sort of ingratiate himself to
kissing
really.
like a motherfucker. He had the spoon and everything ready this time. And then they spoke a little bit about the that super kick that Solo Sikoa ate from Jacob Fatu last week in his qualifying match. What was the match for last week where he ate that super kick? Because that was a qualifying match for something as well, wasn't it?
Was it the final? I want. I'm trying to remember myself now.
Is it a tag match?
I feel like it might have been, yes. Men's tag team. It was the main event from last week, where Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu versus Damian Priest and Braun Strowman.
That's the one, yeah. Obviously, so Jacob Fatu ends up getting told that he's having this match for the, he's taking Solo's place going into this qualifying thing. Once that was announced, I was like, right, you're getting Knight, Strowman, and Fatu, and it's basically going to be Strowman and Fatu beating the shit out of each other, and LA Knight's going to steal it. And that's pretty much how they've been having a lot of these triple threat matches go, is the person who wins is the one who does the least work. And then, which makes sense. They've done it with a few of the different matches, and then that leads into the first one of the 3 matches for the United States #1 contenders triple threat qualifying match, which was Andrade versus Jacob Fatu, which I thought was actually going to be a really good match, considering the 2 wrestling styles and how they're both bigger men, if you get me. Like, it was normally with the luchadors like Andrade, they tend to be a lot smaller and sort of like more petite and very sort of like fast and sort of quick, where Andrade's bigger than your standard luchador, but he can still pull it off just as well. And actually, I think he looks slightly better doing it. Against,
as it stands, I think this was one of the first times that Fatu's ever had to face an opponent quite like Andrade on his own, with no backup from Tama Tonga or anybody else. It's a case that it's one of the very few matches we ever see of Jacob Fatu actually wrestling solo
and having to wrestle solo as well. So it was nice to be able to see that he wasn't just being held up by Tama Tonga, because we know he can actually go when he gets his matches like this, and we've started to see a lot more of him without Tama Tonga at ringside as well.
Yeah, and this is, it always happens when you have people that are bunched up together, that are sort of grouped up together for a while, and then one of them gets a solo push, and the other one just seems to be, they seem to be sort of pushed to the wayside, and
like a spare dick in a porn studio.
Yeah, pretty much, and that seems to be Tama Tonga all over. It would make more sense if they had him competing for something else or involved in another storyline separate, and just sort of keep looping him back in with Jacob Fatu every now and again. They could quite easily do that, but at the moment, he is
well, I've got a feeling we're going to see Zilla Fatu come in soon, and I think we'll end up seeing him join up with Jacob, Tama Tonga, and Solo, and I think we'll end up seeing a tag team push from Tama Tonga and Zilla Fatu. That's where I think they're going to take it anyway.
Well, as far as I'm aware, Zilla Fatu's doing quite well on the independents at the moment, so I don't think he's going to be too...
Well,
he's not going to be coming into WWE anytime soon.
He said in an interview that a few months ago that I saw on Facebook, and it was like someone said to him, like, WWE, when? And he went, soon. Like, I can't tell you when, but soon. So, and that was probably like 6 weeks ago. So we'll probably see him within the next 12 months, I'm guessing. I'm hoping they don't leave it that long, but... Well, they need to do something with Tama if they're going to leave it that long, but... See what happens, I suppose. There is always another episode.
Because the main 2 out of this now, we're looking at it being either... It's Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu. Tama Tonga is the cook in the corner.
But then, did you see that stare down between Solo and Tama when Jacob left that little sort of conversation? Like, those two give each other proper eyes.
There is a possibility that they work this so that Solo Sikoa is doing a lot of ass kissing for Jacob Fatu. He's not really bothering with Tama Tonga.
Just could Tama
and
Tonga
I
sneak the
get-
leadership out from underneath Jacob Fatu?
No, I think we're going to see Fatu eventually forgive Sikoa, but because Sikoa has spent so long trying to ingratiate himself to Fatu and sort of ignoring Tonga, it's going to be a case that Tonga's going to get a little nip from the green-eyed monster, going to get insanely jealous and just start sabotaging Solo Sikoa at every turn.
I mean, that could be an interesting way to go about it.
It's the way that I see it working out, but again, I've had some fantastic theories that work out. I've also had some terrible ones that work out, and I've had some that don't work out at all. So it's a case that we've still got to wait and see what happens with this. But rather than sort of digressing too far, because there's a lot of this to get through, and I don't want to spend too long dwelling on one single thing.
We went into the first match, which was Andrade versus Jacob Fatu, and then we went into a VT for WrestleMania being in New Orleans, and then we ended up backstage in Cody's dressing room with Cody Rhodes and R-Truth of all people. Trust Truth to find out where the food was, man. Like, seriously, guy's walking around there with a tiny ass plate with 2 shrimp on it.
I think you may have skipped over a few bits and pieces here, my dude.
I have.
Wait, no. The Cody Rhodes dressing room promo. You're quite right. Sorry, it's because I've written it all out of order. That actually happened during the entrance for
The Andrade Fatu match.
Which Jacob Fatu ended up walking out with the victory, becoming the first one in the triple threat tournament at the main event at the end of the card.
Let's face it, though, we're not. Sorry, that was a really bad time to have a sneezing fit. We're not going to leave that just quite there, though, because yes, Fatu won, but Andrade ended up getting his ass handed to him at the end with that running hip, and then being hit by a spiked Impaler DDT. And then for that one of those lethal ass moonsaults that Fatu does as well for a 3 count. Like, he got bullied into that loss massively.
In fairness, Andrade for all the work he put in, realistically probably should have won that match.
Right, and he was the upper hand for most of it, but you knew that Fatu was going through. They weren't going to kill the push they've given Fatu by letting him lose to Andrade clean in a qualifier match for a title.
No, because that would have just killed any push. It would have killed dead any push that Jacob Fatu was under at the moment.
Yeah.
It would have killed any momentum he had, and there would have been very little to recover from that, especially if you've got no future plan at the minute for Andrade, which honestly I don't think they have.
They're just giving him a bit of screen time to give him some money before Charlotte Flair takes it all. Well, takes any more after that divorce.
Well, it's... Again, I sort of feel a little bit sorry for Andrade. He left WWE.
Yeah.
Went to AEW.
Yeah. Had a
did
great
reasonably
tenure.
Did reasonably well in AEW. Left AEW to come back to WWE. And now he's a jobber.
Better than being a jobby, I suppose.
It feels like a massive kick to the nuts for him. I'm not going to lie. I think that's how I'd be feeling, unless they're constantly promising him, like, "Oh, we've got something in the works for you. You've just got to stick with it. Just stick with it. We've got something in the works for you. Let us cook a minute." And
I thought they were going to introduce him possibly with the Rey Mysterio, not Rey Mysterio, with the Chad Gable angle, but I'm not quite sure what's taken quite so long with that one. It could be a way they push it, but I don't think it will be. He's gonna end up getting wasted if they put him in programming with Chad Gable, and it would involve having to swap him over to Chad Gable Raw.
Yes, he is.
Yes. So yeah, you end up having to swap him over.
It's not going to make. They're outside of transfer window now, so it's not going to make any sense for him to go in that direction. But yeah, so we went from the Fatu Andrade match, as Rich said, to a backstage promo where we see sort of Cody Rhodes in this new dressing room, which basically has a wall of wine on it. It sort of looks like they've just stuck him in the middle of a restaurant and said, "Yeah, this is your locker room." Yeah. You see all that sushi that's at room temperature now? I wouldn't eat any of it, but it's there.
It looked very, very nice, but yeah, like you said, not digesting any of that. That is a night on the shitter waiting to happen.
Yeah, and it seems that R-Truth has just sort of let himself in. He's chilling out, helping himself to Cody Rhodes' spread, and
well, he found the sushi, didn't he? No wonder we didn't see R-Truth tonight. He was in the bathrooms. He was eating all that shrimp that was no good.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine that was freshly put out just before that promo started somehow.
No, that's been there all day. That was the catering van. Come on.
And R-Truth is talking to Cody Rhodes, obviously, about The Rock's offer. I'm not going to lie, I love the subtle nod to The Rock's dad. Rocky Maivia. No. Yeah, Rocky Maivia, I want to say. So he had a subtle nod to the Rock's dad, who was a wrestler who trained The Rock initially. Obviously, the Rock is after Cody Rhodes' soul. And the subtle nod that R-Truth gives is
to the soul man, Rocky Johnson.
Rocky Johnson, that's it. Rocky Maivia was what the Rock wrestled under at one point for a very short amount of time.
There's a Rock's granddaddy was the great High Chief Peter Maivia.
Yeah.
Who was obviously the first generation WWE wrestler of that specific family, and now it seems that that family owns or is the WWE,
which has been the case for longer than The Rock's, longer than Dwayne Johnson's been on TKO's board of directors.
Yes.
But yeah, it's the Truth basically makes the suggestion that, do you know what? If it's like this, maybe selling your soul isn't so bad.
I like how they've added in like other wrestlers within this storyline, kind of given their input. You know, we saw Seth Rollins give his on Monday Night Raw, and I think he had a very good point. You know, and it's a lot of the way they've got other people coming and going, you know what, I do this, I do that. I quite like it, to be fair. Like, it's been interesting just to sort of, you know, for the people to have their input with the people's champion, if you get me. Because then that's what he classes himself as. He's the WWE Universe's champion, isn't he?
Yeah, this is it. But yeah, I mean, anything big like this in any workplace, you're going to get people who are going to want to weigh in.
Yeah.
You get it everywhere you go. And WWE is no different. It is a workplace at the end of the day. People are going to have their opinions, even if they're R-Truth, who lives in R-Truth land for 90% of his life. But yeah, we went from the backstage promo, that then went into Andrade versus Jacob Fatu, the match. We then went out of there and went into a VT promo, which recapped SmackDown from last week, where the Street Profits basically laid waste to about 85% of SmackDown's tag team division.
Yeah, well, you got to think that last week on SmackDown, Street Profits laid out DIY, Pretty Deadly, Motor City Machine Guns, and was there another team out there at the time?
No, it was those three.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and they laid them out like
it was a title match between DIY and Pretty Deadly.
It was.
Street Profits came out to
interfere. Motor City Machine Guns came out to. We still don't know what Motor City Machine Guns were trying to do when they came out, but they came out and got a can of whoop-ass opened on them.
Yes, they did. And that's when we cut to a pre-recorded backstage conversation between sort of Nick Aldis and the Street Profits. And the one thing that I latched onto more than I possibly should have done is the fact that despite obviously the Street Profits being upset at the fact that they were put on the shelf for 3 months due to injury, due to being jumped, it's a case that they're still very respectful of the position that Nick Aldis holds, which is nice because it's not something we see very often, especially in. I'm guessing they're casting themselves in a heel role at the moment, but I'm not 100% certain of that.
Yeah, no, and obviously we haven't really seen much from Street Profits in ring since we started Finishers and Factions. So the fact that all we've seen is them run in and lay waste to pretty much everyone multiple times has been interesting. To be fair, I'm looking forward to seeing them get in the ring, but it's all been a little bit sort of iffy because they were promised this title and they're not going to stop until they get this title shot that they were promised 3 months ago. But time doesn't wait for no champion. I think, if you've been out for that long, you go down to the bottom of the list and you work your way back up again.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, Street Profits are one of the more experienced tag teams in the division. I mean, the Street Profits themselves sort of debuted back in 2016.
Yeah.
It's a case that they're not new kids on the block by any way, shape, or form.
Well, then they should know how it goes, surely.
Well, I think that before Street Profits took all this time out, I think they threw quite a lot of accusations around just based on what happens next in this little VT, where we see Legado del Fantasma come along asking for apologies for some false accusations that were made. Now, again, everything that happened with Street Profits happened well before the Netflix era.
So the gist I got from this was they got attacked, but no one saw who attacked them. It wasn't like an in-ring attack, or it was like a backstage attack. And they reckon it was Del Fantasmo. But obviously Santos Escobar is pissed about the fact they think it's them. So, yeah, we've got these false accusations that have been thrown around, but are we going to find another situation here about who killed Jade Cargill? Not that Jade Cargill's dead, by the way. It was a joke on that reference. But are we going to end up with like another whodunit series in a different sort of part of their programming?
Yeah, this is it. It's a case that before it gets too heated between these two teams, we have Nick Aldis still present, sort of cuts in and says, "Look, Street Profits have got a match versus Los Garza later on tonight, which has implications on the tag team championship picture, and Santos Escobar has at least one match to wrestle tonight, and they all need to go off and start preparing." So basically, it's a case of shut up, fuck off, and get ready for your matches, basically.
Which was the next part of the programming, was the Street Profits versus Los Garza.
Yeah, so this was match 3, a men's tag team match, and
it wasn't.
Honestly, it wasn't even a match. I wouldn't even call it that.
No,
Los Garza got an entrance, and Street Profits got jumped.
Yeah, and Street Profits got jumped by DIY, of all people, coming in for their chunk of flesh, as that line was quoted. But so already you knew that whatever match they had planned had just gone straight out the window. Like, Gorilla must have just been going, you know what, fuck it, just have at it, have fun. We'll be back in 5 minutes. I need a cigarette and a coffee. Because that's pretty much what happened. It was just 5 to 10 minutes of pure fucking chaos.
Well, it wasn't even as though those were the only teams involved, because we had Pretty Deadly who came down to settle their beef as well.
And then we had a shit ton of security come running out, followed by the Motor City machine guns.
Well, I'm sorry, that security may well have not come out.
Oh, mate, they couldn't fucking organise a piss-up in a brewery, those fucktards. Like, that was fucking diabolical.
It was about 3 or 4 guys. They all stood on one corner of the ring with their dicks in their hand, basically. They may as well have done. They may as well have literally just flopped it out in their hand and gone, yeah, that's what we're here to do.
I'm here to stroke this. Would have made about
as much sense of what they actually did.
Well, they were all stood around, like I said, with their cocks in their hands, and then for about 5 minutes, and then all of a sudden they start getting involved. At which point, you've already got an 8-man fucking last man standing melee in the ring, and they're just kicking fuck out of... Everyone's kicking fuck out of everyone at this point.
Yeah.
Obviously, we know they're not actually kicking the fuck out of them. We do know it's scripted and choreographed, but they're going ham in the middle of the ring. Yeah,
this is it. And, it's just complete chaos. The match gets completely scrapped because, there's bodies flying everywhere.
They weren't getting that back under control. And then...
No.
So... Yeah, no, this was fucked. We ended up cutting backstage while the security dealt with what was going on in ring, to have a sort of little watch of an interview. Well, not even an interview. It's a conversation between our favourite person at the moment, Mr. Drew McIntyre, talking to
the great Scottish crybaby.
Yeah, talking to the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes about the decision that he's got ahead of him tomorrow night at Elimination Chamber, and he sympathises a little bit with Cody because 10 years ago they were both so low that in the company that they'd have done anything to kind of get to where they wanted to be. But it was a bit of a shame he didn't offer it to Drew because Cody sold his soul years ago. Which
I'd like to have known a little bit more behind what it was specifically that
he did to sell his soul.
Talking about then,
yeah,
that was the only bit that really confused me about that. Is that I don't generally, if somebody infers something, I mean, it generally tends to fly straight over my head anyway. But that's it's a case that when it comes to the WWE, if somebody infers something, it's normally something that's happened recently. So I genuinely don't know what it is that McIntyre thinks Rhodes has done to sell his soul recently that meant that he could make that sort of a comment, or whether he was just trying to say something to get under Cody's skin, because that's a possibility as well. But yeah, I mean,
so Sports Skeeter reckons that this was Drew saying that Cody's already sold his soul to The Rock.
So that he'd already possibly agreed to something, maybe. Or...
Yeah. But
I mean, possibly. Apparently, they exchange text messages all the time and drink tequila in the back at the end of live shows. So who knows? They might. I mean,
Rock says all this, but Cody doesn't look too convinced. Cody's kind of like, "What the fuck are you chatting about, bro? Like, are you on mushrooms?"
He's maybe on the same stuff as R-Truth.
At least he's not on the same stuff as that guy in the TikTok I sent you the other day.
Apparently, you can't tell the difference between Tommaso Ciampa and Triple H.
No.
Or Shawn Michaels and Johnny Gargano.
That was a difficult one, I'm not going to lie. Like, the Tommaso Ciampa one I could understand, but Shawn Michaels and Johnny Gargano was a bit of a stretch, I think.
Yeah, it was a bit of a stretch, wasn't it?
It was definitely a bit of a stretch.
But we follow that up. WWE makes a bit of an announcement saying that they're going back to Perth, Australia this year. They haven't said when and what for, but it's apparently a weekend takeover of Perth, Australia. So I'm going to take a guess that
there's going to be an
we may have-
NXT takeover pay-per-view there, and there's going to be possibly SummerSlam over there as well.
You think it's going to be SummerSlam? It was Elimination Chamber last time.
It was, but we're doing Elimination Chamber now, so I think SummerSlam could be interesting, because if they do SummerSlam in Australia in the sort of time period it is, it would actually be winter in Australia.
Yeah, that's true.
So SummerSlam this year apparently is the weekend at the 2nd of August, but it's in the MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. Oh, so I fucked that one already.
So we'll possibly see maybe Hell in a Cell.
That is a good show.
I'm going to say Hell in a Cell in Perth, Australia. I mean, hopefully it's better than AEW did in Perth, Australia.
Maybe WWE might be able to get their ring out there.
Yeah, that's it. Maybe WWE will be able to get a full-size ring.
Hell in a Cell is no longer a pay-per-view. Finished in 2023. It was rebranded as King and Queen of the Ring.
That might be the way they go with it then.
Changed to Night of Champions. Oh, Jesus Christ, that was... fuck it, there'll be a pay-per-view at some point in Perth, Australia that has NXT one night on a takeover, and then a big pay-per-view on the Saturday.
Basically,
of wherever.
WWE are going to pay a shitload of money to fire a bunch of people that already make a shitload of money over to Perth, Australia for a weekend of
making a shitload of
underpants.
money and getting drunk.
Yeah, pretty much.
For our privilege on TV.
So we go from WWE's announcement
into
more TKO's announcement, but yeah,
into the Cena retirement tour VT again.
Oh yeah, this bloody VT.
Well, to be fair, we're not the only ones who think that at the moment, because, I mean, don't get me wrong, fucking VT. Every opportunity they get to throw it in that it's Cena's retirement tour, they're getting it in. Did you know that Cena is retiring, Adam?
What? You'd think they'd mention it.
Yeah, it's a retirement tour.
At least 62 times in a 3-hour program.
Yeah.
I mean, I must have missed that one. I think I missed the fucking memo. But yeah, and
it's all build up, I suppose. It's all build up.
It makes me a little bit sick to my stomach that the other person that feels exactly the same way as us about this fucking VT is
Mr.
Drew
McIntyre. Yeah, he just came out and cried.
Yeah, pretty much. He came out, ragged on Cena.
I said he was going to rag on Cena.
He talked about Cena being a hypocrite.
That bold spot.
Oh, mate, that bald spot that needs its own area code.
Oh, yes.
And what 2010 and what Cena from 2010, 2011 would say about present day Cena.
Right, but he wrong with that part? He made a lot of valid points. He did it all to The Rock. You're a part-timer. You're lazy. You're never here. You don't do this. What's all the things that Cena's done? Boom.
Yeah.
Right.
And it wasn't even that long ago, which is the even more embarrassing thing. But McIntyre doesn't stay out there on his own for very long. When he starts talking about his 2024 season, if you like, Damian Priest comes out and decides to tell him to shut his trap.
Drew, it's enough. All you do is cry and we see right through you.
Yeah.
The best line that Damian Priest came out with in this entire promo that he cut was, dude, our truth makes more sense than you. After Drew tried telling everyone that he just speaks the truth, and it's like, yeah, fuck off. Our truth's yeah, makes more sense than you do. And he's in the back with a big bag of something fun that he shouldn't have right now.
He's in the back, sitting on the shitter because he's had too much room temperature sushi. And yeah, Priest does his own recap of Drew's year last year, and sort of he comes to like quite a valid conclusion that Drew's just obsessed with CM Punk to the point that he's actually starting to behave like him. And it's when it's pointed out to Drew that he's sat cross-legged on the announce desk trying to drop a pipe bomb.
He actually turns around and goes, "Oh, I dropped the pot, but I drop the pipe bombs around here now." And I'm like, "No, you don't. No, fuck off." But yeah, sat on that announce table like 2010 CM Punk, just about to run out of SummerSlam with the world title and never return. Like,
guess what? He came back.
He just made that entire promo that he cut that day, that pipe bomb, completely like null and void because he came back.
Well, no, because a lot of what he said, I mean, he started getting basically from interviews that I've seen about that pipe bomb. I'm not going to digress too far into this, but from the interviews I've seen, basically they gave him a microphone and said, "Just go out and say what's on your mind."
Right. Yeah.
And then he got to a certain
one.
point where he started making personal comments about Vince and the family, and that was it. That was when they were like, "No, fucking cut him off before he says something we're all going to regret."
The one thing you don't do is give Phil Brooks a microphone and say, "Here, go ham."
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, but yeah, we're going to digress away from the digression. So Priest, Damien and Drew are basically about to get into it when they are interrupted by the human pillow himself, Seth freaking Rollins. Honest to God, does anybody seriously tell him what he looks like when he's walking around in these fucking outfits?
Punk, have we missed Punk coming in?
No, because Punk doesn't come in until after Rollins has already been in.
Ah, right, yeah. So Rollins comes in, and like I've got in my notes here that Seth Rollins is dressed like Jasmine from Aladdin. And he was just fucking stupid.
He basically comes in. He calls everybody in the. He calls Priest a moron, and he calls Drew a moron, and then basically tells them all that they haven't got a chance. However, there's one thing that has nothing to do with Seth Rollins that I noticed in this part at this particular part that made me laugh more than I probably should have done, is that if you watch this part of the promo back, there is a guy in the crowd holding a sign that says Drew McIntyre wipes his arse side to side. Quoted on this sign, and I'm sorry if one of the best signs I've seen in a very long time in the crowd is the one that says Drew McIntyre wipes his arse from side to side.
That is ruthless. You got to love the WWE Universe's ability to come out with some of these signs.
Oh, 100%. But now this is when CM Punk comes out.
Yeah, so Punk,
we hear from the personality himself.
Yeah. And I've got so many notes about this specific section, but it just doesn't feel like any of them make any sense now I'm looking at them again. And
so I know Punk tells Rollins that he looks like an oven mitt.
Yeah. Which I thought was fucking quality.
Especially considering I've since seen a meme online that shows Seth Rollins in that outfit and then an oven mitt that looks exactly like that outfit. It looks exactly like that outfit.
It's bad. I'm pretty sure I've got one in the kitchen that looks exactly like that outfit, just a different colour.
Yeah. And then, Punk basically agrees with something that Priest said. in fairness, he does turn to Priest at one point and just says, honestly,
I got a problem with you.
I don't have an issue with you.
Did you notice at this point now that you've got Drew on the announce table, you've got Rollins and Priest in the ring. The only person who doesn't actually set foot in that ring up to now is Punk. He spends his entire time on the outside.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought this was quite an interesting one, because he makes himself out to be the outsider, and now he's really trying to sort of like push that at the moment about, you know, he didn't really need anyone, and then he stands away from everyone else. And then while the other three were kind of doing their thing, and then the one, I'm not going to lie to you, they got me with this next bit. Like, they got me hook, line.
Before we go any further,
yeah,
we have to make sure that we mention this part because it's integral to what happens next. So Punk echoes a sentiment that me and you have spoken about a lot on and off the podcast, is that Cena is on this retirement tour that he's not really on.
yes.
This is the point where, yes, this even got me. I knew it was gonna. I'd seen a spoiler online because I hadn't watched it live. I watched it re-edited afterwards, as I always do. It's a case that I'd seen a spoiler online that this was going to happen, so I knew it was going to happen, and it still caught me off guard because the next thing we hear is Cena's music hit.
Right, and they say it caught me hook, line, and sinker. I was generally waiting for the man that you cannot see to come running out with a microphone in his hand. Instead, we got the knobhead known as Logan Paul come out with a microphone in his hand, laughing his ass off at the fact that he just managed to troll.
I mean, in fairness, the guy punked not just all of Toronto, but pretty much 90%. I'm going to take a guess at 90% of the viewing. Yeah.
He got us all, bro. Like, I don't know about you, but every time I hear Cena's entry music when it comes to a match or something along those lines, I always get goosebumps. It's just one of those, you know, you're going to get something half decent, right? And we've watched the guy our entire lives when he's been in ring and competing. Like, oh yeah, always get a little bit of goosebumps, and it got me, and I was like, yes. And then I heard Logan Paul's voice, and I was like, you son of a bitch. Like, yeah. You could have literally done anything to me right now. You could have reminded me of the game, and I'd have been less pissed off than what I would have been, than what I was, sorry, when I heard Logan Paul's voice.
Fucking hate you. You're a dick. Oh. Right, I'm going to crack on because I'm going to yeah, no.
Yeah.
Fuck you, you big nosed prick. Right, yeah, Logan Paul basically comes out and pushes this agenda that he is now a full-time wrestler, and even has the gall. And I'm sorry, while I will stand up to the fact that we have said that Cena is more part-time than part-time at the moment, it still hit a little bit different when Logan Paul decides to call him a celeb wrestler.
I mean, John Cena is currently doing the hours that a part-time waitress on sick pay does. So, you know, like, there isn't a lot of time there for him. And yeah, like you said, for him to refer to Cena as a celebrity wrestler was a bitch move.
Yeah.
Considering little bitch.
And I mean, Logan Paul just comes out and basically rags on everybody. He takes a pop at the Toronto Maple Leafs. I
mean, that's a valid point.
He mentions somebody else. I don't really remember who it was, but he takes I'm guessing it's a local sports hero of some kind.
Yeah, it was Austin someone, wasn't it?
Something like that. And yeah, Logan Paul basically takes a pop at each and every single person in the ring, calls Damian Priest irrelevant, which, yeah, I have a tough time being able to rebuke that because he's not the most relevant person in the ring. He's the guy with the fewest lines, and that was when Logan Paul came out last. Basically, Logan Paul takes a run at everybody, leaves Punk for last, and Pete keeps poking and poking and poking until Punk basically makes a play for him, and Logan Paul runs off like the bitch ass he is. And the only thing that I could think of while watching Logan Paul turn tail and run like a coward is he hasn't got anywhere to run in 24 hours.
No, he doesn't.
He's going to be sealed in a chamber waiting to come out, because I severely doubt he's going to be the first one. He's going to be one of the initial two in the ring.
No, but I think the way they're building this Logan Paul CM Punk thing, I think that's going to be Punk's WrestleMania match this year is Logan Paul. I know he's going into the Elimination Chamber in 24 hours time, but there's an elimination chamber match has got a lot of big names in it, and they can't all go on to main event WrestleMania. So I think,
well, we know that Logan Paul isn't walking out of that elimination chamber with his hand raised.
No,
that's a given. I'm still putting money on the fact. I had a little bit of a wobble when we spoke about it, and when we were doing Finishes and Factions does Monday Night Raw, just gone. That where I said I think it could actually be Punk's year. I'm going to be honest. I still think there's a possibility, but my main, if I had to split a bet and bet money on it, it's Cena walking out of that with his hand raised, 100%.
Yeah,
there's no other way around it.
No, I can't see them doing any other way around it. But no, so we then end up going from that dispersing in ring into a VT for the 6 women tag match that we have later on in the evening. At this point, I hadn't made a note of who it was within that match. Later on, found out it was Roxanne Perez with Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez versus Bayley, Naomi, and Bianca Belair. Which we get into a little bit later on in the episode.
Yeah, so the this 6-woman tag match is born of something that happened on the Elimination Chamber kickoff show that happened earlier in the day, where Michael Cole was interviewing Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, our new women's tag team champions, about the Jade Cargill attack.
Yeah, they're still adamant it was not them. And everyone wants to know who attacked Jade Cargill. And we got a little bit more information about it this week. I didn't actually know what happened to her, but this week we find out she was hit by a car. Well, or something was done to her which left her going through the windscreen of a vehicle bum first.
Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez have been very careful about how they word their responses when asked about it.
Yeah.
The only time they've ever expressly said that they didn't do it was Monday Night Just Gone during a Judgment Day Clubhouse promo, where they did say, "Yeah, no, it wasn't. It wasn't us." But every other time they're asked, they don't say, "No, it wasn't us." It's would we be sorry if we had done it?
Not really.
No, we wouldn't.
No,
they very much skirt around the question.
They are dropping hints that it could have been them. I still think your theory on Naomi is pretty tight on that one.
It makes so much sense.
Now
the person who had the most amount to gain.
Now they've lost the titles as well. You know, the Monday Night Raw before Elimination Chamber. We're going to see a bomb drop in the Women's Elimination Chamber match tomorrow, I think.
Well,
if we end up with those two in the ring together.
I've seen something online that says that since SmackDown went out, I've seen that Jade Cargill is cleared for in-ring competition.
I've seen that.
Come back imminently.
I've seen that as well, yeah. So
it's going to happen. I can feel it.
And if they won't tell us or don't tell us before Jade Cargill comes back from her injuries, Jade Cargill will tell us when she comes back.
Oh, 100%.
And that's when the Brown stuff is going to hit the fan.
I am waiting for the word Naomi to pass her lips when asked who was it who attacked you.
Mate, if
'Cause
she
it
says the
just
word
makes so
Naomi,
much
you are
sense.
going to be partying in your front room like a 13-year-old because you'll be like, I called it. Whoa, whoa.
I don't think I can masturbate that furiously anymore.
I ran out of breath 30 seconds in. 2 secs, love me to
Anyway, we went from that VT into match 4, which was another men's singles match for the US title #1 contenders triple threat, which saw LA Knight versus Santos Escobar.
Yeah, this one didn't really. This is going to sound really strange considering this is an LA Knight match, and I really enjoy watching it. I wasn't that interested in this one. I knew as soon as they announced LA Knight versus Santos Escobar, this had squash match / just not really relevant written all over it. One of those that you'll remember it like 12 hours later when you're recording a podcast episode looking at notes, but once you've been to bed and come back to it, you're not remembering it.
So I actually thought this was one of the best, like, out of the 3 qualifiers, I actually think this was the better match in terms of, because
Okay.
obviously we haven't yet discussed Carmelo Hayes versus Braun Strowman,
We haven't.
so
No.
we'll discount that one for the moment. We have already broken down Jacob Fatu versus Andrade,
Which we kind of
which we
knew
said-
was going to be a bit of a beat down as soon as we realised that Jacob Fatu was replacing Solo Sikoa. So as soon as that announcement was made, we knew where that was going.
We knew that Fatu was going to win. I expected that one to be the squash match.
Yeah, that
as
was
we
the
discussed-
better match, to be fair.
As we discussed, Andrade was ahead for a majority of that match. He held the control, and then Fatu just got something in really well timed. An intense beatdown ensued, and he managed to pull out the win. Other than that, he was on the back foot for majority of that match.
He was, yeah.
So that one was the most surprising result based on what happened within the match. On paper, we knew Jacob Fatu was walking out a winner.
Like
But-
we do with this one, to be fair, because like we said earlier, LA Knight is already the #1 contender. They're just beefing out his run as #1 contender with these matches, I think. Santos Escobar has been more on the tag team title, so he's not really got a horse in this race, so why would they put him through?
No, but having said that, he didn't put up a bad match.
No, he had a decent match, to be fair. He did have a decent match.
I mean,
We
he
definitely-
pulled off a massive super hurricane rana from the top rope on LA Knight at one stage.
Yeah, that-
which to
that
be fair
looked like
was
it hurt.
picture perfect.
Oh yeah, it definitely was. That was probably one of the only like highlights of that match, though, for like high risk maneuvers that I made a note of. There may have been more in there. I just, like I said, I lost a bit of interest in this match.
So the only other note that I made was, so I made a couple of other notes here. So Knight tries to send Escobar into the ring steps, but it was reversed. LA Knight ends up colliding with the steps himself, but head
Yes.
first. I also made a note of the finish, how it finished. So
I got that.
Escobar goes up top for the crossbody.
Yep,
He's caught by LA Knight in a blunt force trauma BFT
in
and
midair.
that's how- yeah, it looked a little bit like it when he did it. I'm not gonna lie, it looked a little bit RKO-ish, but
It worked.
it did. It did what it was supposed to. But we know ultimately LA Knight advances to be the second person in the triple threat in the main event.
Yep, and we went from that match into a VT about the Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, and sanctioned match tomorrow night at Elimination Chamber, and then
Which went into an in-ring promo with Sami Zayn coming out to address. Well, he came out to address Kevin Owens.
yeah, he did, and he basically just kind of said to him that they've been through a lot together over the years, but Kevin's been running and hiding like a little bitch. And he knows that Kevin's in Toronto because they've got that match at Elimination Chamber tomorrow night, and he told him that he'd be there.
Yeah.
And he was basically just saying, look, if there's anything you want to say before our match tomorrow, come to the ring. Let's just say it, you know. Let's get it all off our chest, because after our match tomorrow night, there's not going to be much left to say.
And in fairness to Kevin Owens, he did come to a ring.
He did. So,
it just wasn't the ring in the Scotiabank Arena.
No, Kevin Owens, when he came into the camera on the Titron, was actually stood in the ring in the Rogers Centre, Toronto, which is where they are holding tomorrow night's Elimination Chamber match. And he basically just said that he'd gone there to get his head straight and kind of prepare himself and kind of kind of get himself into the zone for his unsanctioned match with Sami the next night.
The one particularly chilling bit of what Kevin Owens said that I did take a note of was basically Kevin saying that he's going to take pleasure in watching. He is going to end up taking pleasure in what he does to Sami Zayn in their unsanctioned match tomorrow. But it's a case that he's more so thinking of and taking more pleasure out of watching Sami Zayn's family struggle when he ends Sami Zayn's career, and he will do nothing to help them. Bearing in mind that these guys have been close friends for
20 odd years.
Decades.
Yeah. I mean,
so to be able to say something like that, I think it shows the level that this is sort of sunk to. And despite what Kevin Owens says himself, this is all of Kevin Owens' own doing.
Yes, and these two guys have pulled out some incredible promos for this match. But I'm not going to lie to you, I just want to watch them fight.
Yeah, we're less than 24 hours removed from when they're due to tee off against one another at the Rogers Centre. This promo fell touch flat just because of where we were and how we were getting. I mean, I don't see them continuing to be friends, despite no matter what happens in that unsanctioned match at Elimination Chamber. Realistically, that friendship is done.
Definitely. I will say though that whatever does happen in that unsanctioned match, I don't think this is the end of this storyline. I think this is going to continue through to Mania, and one of the matches at Mania will be Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn.
Yeah, it's not gonna be the last we hear of it by any way, shape, or form.
No, they'll take a week or two out to try and show like, oh, you know, they were really, really hurt in that match, and then they'll come back in 2-3 weeks and they'll be like, oh yeah, no injuries.
Yeah, this is it. So we went from there to a backstage promo, which sees one of our favourite people, The Miz. And Carmelo Hayes, and basically the Miz giving Hayes a bit of a pep talk before his match, which is coming up next, realistically.
With Braun Strowman.
But the one thing that I sort of didn't expect to see here was Carmelo Hayes has really started embracing the reality of Melo don't Miz.
I think that he's got a win under his belt with Miz now, and it's Miz is trying, bless him, and I think he's just kind of rubbing off. But what I found interesting is you've got the Melo don't Miz, and then it's not just a lifestyle, it's awes him, which was like, oh dear God, they've even got a catchphrase to go with it now, so you know these guys are getting pushed into a tag.
It was such a cringy fucking. Yeah, no.
It was, but you know these guys are going to get pushed because it'll get over with some of the crowd because of how cringy it is.
Yes, I know, and yeah, it's to be expected, but but yeah, it's going to be one of those. But yeah, Hayes basically says, "Look, I don't need you at ringside. Don't need you, The Miz, at ringside to be able to do anything else. It's literally a case, let me take care of it myself." And then he fucks off to go and take part in his match, basically. And then goes from there. So Carmelo Hayes leaves. Cody Rhodes comes into shot. And the big takeaway I got is Miz trying to convince him to take Rock's offer before somebody else does.
Oh,
And it was that last bit that got me.
who else could Rock, in theory, get his claws into to fuck with Cody that's not Roman? Or Punk?
Yeah, this is it. It's one of those we're not. Yeah, it's just a really odd thing to say.
It is, but we know what WWE are like, and we will probably find out either later on today, Elimination Chamber, or at some point in the next week, sort of what Miz meant by that specific comment.
Yeah, I think so.
They don't drop things like that in for no reason. They'll have a line that will be a gimmick or a head start for something. It's too much of a throwaway for it not to be.
Yeah, this is it. So we go from there to in ring, where we see the last of the number one contenders first round matches, which is Braun Strowman versus Carmelo Hayes. And honestly, I think despite what happens in the match, I think we all sort of saw where this one was going to end up going.
Yeah.
Carmelo Hayes was completely outclassed, completely outmatched in every aspect.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look, it takes like 3 Carmelo Hayes just to make Braun Strowman's leg. So it was a bit of an interesting matchup, to say the least, but it had me on gripper hooks to see where it was going, even though I was adamant from the start that Braun Strowman was winning this and winning it pretty comfortably. But as we got through the match, and I didn't get a huge amount of notes for this one, I'm not going to lie. Not for any sort of major spots, so to speak. So I'm not sure what you picked up, Adam.
So there wasn't really anything to pick up on when it comes to this, because basically Carmelo Hayes spent about 3-4 minutes of being ragdolled by Braun Strowman, at which point we see Tama Tonga run down from the back to jump onto the apron to distract the ref, while we've got Solo Sikoa coming out of the crowd with a chair to try and basically try and do one over on Braun Strowman. But again, Braun Strowman is one big SOB.
Yeah.
It's going to take more than a punky chair shot to take the man down.
Yeah, no, definitely. I must admit, I couldn't remember where the chair had come from, but I didn't see Solo bring it in. I saw Tama Tonga run down, so I must have been looking at the keyboard typing when Solo brought that chair around throughout the crowd. Yeah,
I saw him armed. He was revealed to us as armed with that chair. So it's a case that the only thing I didn't pick up on is what happens next. So I don't remember how the chair ended up in the ring.
I'm guessing it got taken into the ring by Braun Strowman from the outside.
Potentially. In which case, how did it end up in Carmelo Hayes' possession? Because
if Strowman threw it into slid it under the bottom rope as he got into the ring, if Hayes has picked it up or he's over slid it too far and Hayes has got his hands on it, what Hayes does with it though is pure naughty. And it was nice to see yet another tribute to the late great Eddie Guerrero.
That wasn't done by Dom Mysterio?
Pretty much. I mean, they're getting a little bit boring now because Dom does them week in, week out. When he stands on the ring, he shakes his butt and But yeah, to see the old fakie with the chair, like bash it into the mat and then toss it at your opponent and then flip yourself onto your ass going, oh, you hit me with a fucking chair. For Braun Strowman to be stood there like a twat with his dick in his hand holding a chair too, going like, ooh,
yeah,
shit.
it's been a very long time since we've seen it done well.
Yes.
So the fact that we got to see it on this occasion, as I said, done well, it's a case that it was just nice to be able to see it come out of retirement, I suppose.
Yeah, pretty well. I say if you can do it well, do it. If you can't do it well, leave it the fuck alone.
Yeah, it's got to be done. It's got to be done in the right way, and that was just choreographed.
It was. Yeah, so obviously we end up in a disqualification ending to this one because the ref believes that Strowman has smashed Carmelo Hayes with a chair, so he disqualifies Braun Strowman, which sends Carmelo Hayes into the triple threat main event with Jacob Fatu and LA Knight to find out who is going to be the number one contender for the United States title. But before we get into that big bundle of fun, we have a backstage VT with Naomi and Bianca Belair talking to Bayley about the former tag champs wanting to get their hands on Liv Morgan for attacking Jade Cargill. Still, I mean, we've seen it from one side, we're seeing it from the other. It happens with every sort of VT, I suppose, but just reveal to us who beat up Jade Cargill. And to be fair, it's not been that long since we spoke about Jade Cargill anyway. I think it was about 20 minutes since we previously heard about Jade Cargill. Yeah,
it's one of those that they are... Have they hit the point now of overhyping it? Is that the sort of...
I'll tell you something, if Jade Cargill doesn't come back, reveal who beat her up and kick some serious motherfucking ass in her return, and then the hype has not been worth it.
Yeah, this is it. I mean,
some booty needs to be battered for the beating that she took.
Yeah, this is it. So, we. I'll be honest. I don't feel like that little backstage promo was really necessary.
No.
Didn't add anything as such. It's just wasn't enamoured by this. It wasn't something that I felt we could have quite easily given some more minutes to another match and cut that promo out completely.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie to you. I felt very similar about the next match. I'm really not going to lie to you. On paper, the next match was phenomenal. Adam, did I miss anything? Or did we go from that VT into the next match?
No, we went from that VT into the next match, which was the 6-woman tag team match, which saw Liv Morgan, Roxanne Perez and Raquel Rodriguez versus Bayley, Bianca Belair and Naomi. And I mean, for what could have been an absolutely phenomenal match, it just felt a bit
lackluster.
There.
What I'm going to say is this entire episode to this point feels like it has gone from being phenomenal at the start. You know, we get a great start to the episode, and everything from there has kind of gone downhill. I kind of feel like it needs to have been reversed. So we got the naff at the start, and then when you get to the end, you get your big match, your main event, the most interesting one of the night, which so far for me was that opening match.
Yeah, I'm in very much the same boat. I mean, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the bit at the end of this match. I mean, there wasn't a lot that I took notes on. I did take note on the finish. So Perez hits Pop Rocks on Bayley for the 3 count. But other than that, it was...
All I got for most of it was that the match was basically a brawl for 50% of it, and the other 50% of it just wasn't worth talking about.
I put it down that the match was. It was. If the match was 10 minutes long, it was an opportunity for 6 superstars all to get their shit in.
Yeah.
Which, in fairness, they did. All of them got a chance to play dominant superstar.
They did.
But just wasn't it wasn't worth giving that time for what we got. The only bit of this match, as I said, that I enjoyed after Perez gets the pin on Bailey, and Perez, Morgan, and Rodriguez are
In the ring
declared the
celebrating.
winner.
Well, it's just Perez that's celebrating when one of my favourite superstars sneaks into the ring behind her. Adam?
Yeah. Bear with me a second. Bear with me. I have to press a button before I say this next superstar, or otherwise, otherwise the other thing listens.
I thought he was going for the lubricant. My bad, chap.
No. We have Alexa Bliss join us in ring. She seemingly comes out of nowhere and plants Perez. I mean, plants Perez
With that,
what commentary describe as an Abigail DET. Just looks very similar to a sister Abigail that the late great Bray Wyatt used to use, but I understand that they don't call it that anymore for that reason.
But now you mention the name Wyatt, that brings us nicely into the end of this segment, where after Alexa Bliss has hit that Abigail DDT on Roxanne Perez, we get a Wyatt 6 glitch. And we've not had one of those for a little while.
So it's definitely been a couple of weeks since we last had one of those. Because the last time Alexa Bliss managed to make an appearance on SmackDown, we saw her in a backstage promo.
Yes.
And we saw one of these little glitches then. But previous to that, we haven't seen it probably since the Wyatt 6 were active. So,
which was before we started this podcast, so we won't actually have any episodes on the Wyatt 6 yet. This is their first major mention on Finishers and Factions.
Yeah, we've talked about Wyatts and things like that. We've certainly mentioned them at the very least, but never really had anything to break down for them. And maybe this means that they're going to be making a return shortly.
Well, talking of people that have made a return recently, we go to a backstage segment with Byron Saxton and the Queen, Charlotte Flair. Woo! Talking about sort of the Stratton team at Elimination Chamber. Obviously, we've got Trish and Tiffy have got their match against Nia and Candice LeRae, which we'll talk about more in the Elimination Chamber match episodes when they go live a little bit later on. It's basically just Charlotte saying that no matter what happens in that match, her eyes are firmly focused on Tiffy Stratton and their match at WrestleMania. And, you know, in that match at WrestleMania, there's going to be absolutely no help for Tiffy and what's coming from Charlotte, which we can only guess was written into a contract that she could win the title at WrestleMania and then she can drop it again 6 months later and leave and come back next year and do the whole thing over again.
I'm going to be honest. I know I say it again and again. I'm just bored with Charlotte Flair.
Already. Right, she's been back since the Royal Rumble and I'm bored already.
I mean, I was bored anyway.
Yeah. I wasn't mad that she wasn't around, let's put it that way. I was quite enjoying it.
Yeah, I definitely didn't miss her.
I don't think the women's division need her. That is the problem. They're so much stronger without her than they are with her.
Yeah, this is it. It's not... We're not looking at...
It's not someone like Natalia that's going to bring something to the division to amplify it, even if it's just putting over a couple of the less experienced people in the division. Charlotte don't do that. If it don't benefit Charlotte Flair don't fucking care. That was a mouthful.
No, this is it. It's Charlotte Flair is very much out for herself in every way, shape, or form. She's not there to further the business or anything like that. She feels like the business owes her, which I really just don't think it does.
You're not your dad, Charlotte.
I was going to say it owes her dad a massive amount.
She is not her dad.
The business will never be able to repay the debt to Ric Flair that he has racked up, in my opinion. But Charlotte Flair,
she's not collecting that debt.
No, definitely not.
And thankfully, this segment didn't last too long, because I think if it had lasted much longer, I'd have been asking Kurt Cobain where the shotgun was. It was getting quite painful with Charlotte. So we go on from there, if I am correct, into our main event of the evening.
So
nope,
we
I always
almost
miss something.
There was a. In fairness, again, in light of what happens or what has happened potentially, this next VT is completely irrelevant now, because it's a VT promo for at the time that this goes out, the current US champion Shinsuke Nakamura, basically giving a reaction to this number one contenders tournament and how he plans to humiliate his next challenger. Now, as I said, if the rumours are to be believed,
that title's now being vacated. So that promo was completely pointless, but I suppose at the time of airing it was still a thing. He hadn't stepped down as of yet, again, if that rumour is true.
Yeah, and it's a case that, I mean, again, I said this on, I think it was last Monday Night Raw. It's a case that sorry, I'm just looking to see if there's anything online about the fact that anything online about Shinsuke Nakamura vacating his title, but he's vacated titles before, but nothing's been confirmed, so I'm not sure how true that one is. But yeah, Shinsuke Nakamura, I've said before, it's not it's never great when you have a promo, a VT promo, or any promo that requires subtitles.
No.
I ended up watching this in between doing other things, and the fact that I had to sit and concentrate on it to read the sodding subtitles really just sort of took me out of it, and I just feel like it was a pointless promo, realistically. Even with the subtitles, it made no sense. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair enough.
But, now we go into the main event match, which was the men's triple threat match for the number one contendership for the US title, which sees Jacob Fatu versus Carmelo Hayes versus LA Knight. All three men have already wrestled one match. Well, we'll use wrestled in the loosest sense of the term, especially for Carmelo Hayes, who got thrown around a little bit and then
won. Yeah.
I think Bonnie Blue wrestled more of her opponents than she did than Carmelo Hayes did with Braun Strowman. But
yeah, we did get a quick VT just while the entrances were going on with Triple H saying that Travis Scott would be at the arena in Toronto for Elimination Chamber tomorrow evening. And then I did notice this as he walked out. Dude's wearing a suit with Jordans. No suit shoes. Okay. As he walks out the door at the end of it, that man is in full-on trainers.
Fair play.
And then we had a little bit of a backstage thing between Solo, Jacob, and Tamatonga, saying that Jacob Fatu needs to go out there now and he needs to finish the job. They've helped him get into the triple threat. It's time for him to do his thing.
They took out the biggest threat.
Yeah, pretty much. They took out Braun Strowman, so it was a little bit easier for him to get through. And then, obviously, in his normal fashion, Jacob Fatu cuts a promo on his way out to Gorilla, basically saying to Nakamura how he's going to come after him, beat him down, and take his title. And then everyone's favourite line at the moment, "Hit my music," as he goes through Gorilla and then straight out to his music and down to the ring for his entrance.
Yeah, and
Fatu.
Do you know what? The match itself wasn't that bad. There was a little bit of fatigue setting in, I think, which I don't think anybody was going to be able to begrudge.
Not considering they've all been in the ring previously. Yes, Carmelo Hayes didn't do much apart from absorb damage. Yeah. But they've all been out there, and I can imagine Braun Strowman beating on you is not an easy thing to anticipate. So, yeah, I can understand why he was wincing a little bit.
No, this is it.
I mean, it's not as bad as the wince he had when he stuck a headbutt on Jacob Fatu. Has anyone not learned in the WWE now? You do not headbutt a Samoan.
Apparently not.
You'd have thought they'd know, but yeah, Carmelo Hayes decides to throw a headbutt at Jacob Fatu of all people. Why would you want to get close enough to headbutt him?
Yeah, this is it. And there's a few other bits of that I made a note of.
Great bits in this match. That was just the first one that came to mind that fitted.
So there was a point where Fatu was basically stacking Hayes and Knight against Timekeep.
Is that when he tossed himself over the barrier because they both fucked off in the opposite direction?
Yes, it was. Both Knight and Hayes dodged at the last possible second, and you just see Fatu fly over the barrier, and it just it was just a colossal failure.
Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's Jacob Fatu flying again.
Yeah, pretty much. Another point not too long after this, Carmelo Hayes takes advantage of Fatu in a prone position sort of thing and plants Fatu with some kind of springboard DDT, which Fatu just completely no-sells.
He does that a lot, doesn't he? Just kind of shrugs a lot of these moves off. He no-sells Carmelo Hayes a few times in this match. And you just there like, are you going to take the piss, or are you just trying to oversell yourself?
I think giving a superstar like Jacob Fatu the ability to no-sell on the regularity that he does is way, way, way too dangerous.
Oh yeah,
we've got to see that he is vulnerable, and don't get me wrong, we're seeing it more now, but still, it's just there's far too much. But anyway, it's a case that I mean, there's so many bits in this match that I noted down, but let's see. LA Knight hits a jumping net breaker, which only really earns him a 2 count.
Yep.
LA Knight again hits a springboard crossbody on Fatu, which sends Fatu onto the announce desk at one point, because there was a very real possibility that he could have ended up with a similar injury to one JD McDonough. But the finish for this match realistically ended up with Fatu really beating down on Carmelo Hayes, getting Carmelo Hayes into a position to pin him, being dragged off Carmelo Hayes by LA Knight at possibly the last minute.
For Knight to run in and pin him himself, the cheeky prick.
Yeah, I mean, we've said before about stealing victories, and I think that's about as stolen as you get.
Yeah, you couldn't have done a better job on that one. To be fair, he literally just dragged him off and went, no, 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 not today, my good sir. I'll be taking that.
Yeah, I
Fucketh
mean,
you.
very much so. And yeah, I mean, that was how that. So LA Knight secures himself, cements himself as the de facto number one contender.
Which he was anyway, but they've just used it
Yeah,
as an
again,
excuse to try and boost it, like boost the storyline, I suppose, not knowing what was going to happen. Obviously, they must have known that Shinsuke wasn't going to be there. He was in Japan, so they were just trying to fill some spaces, I guess. Was that his match was one match that should have been there that wasn't there?
yeah, this is it. So yeah, we go from there to backstage where we see Cody Rhodes and CM Punk sort of hashing it out between the two of them.
Little conversation about what Punk would have done if he'd have been made that offer, and he puts his hands up and says, "You know what? I'd have taken it."
As a younger man, he says, "Yeah, I'd have taken that all day long."
As an older
But
man,
now I'm older and I'm older and wiser. I would rather see you take it,
shine it up.
line it up real nice, turn it sideways, and stick it straight up The Rock's part-time Hollywood candy ass. And do you know what?
Always had that hatred for Rock, though, ever since he nicked that WrestleMania spot off him in 2012.
Yeah, but to be able to turn one of The Rock's phrases on him.
Oh yeah, and Rock don't like that.
Was just chef's kiss, absolutely phenomenal. And the last section of the match that we go to is an in-ring promo or an in-ring interview, at least as it starts, between Michael Cole and Cody Rhodes talking about The Rock's offer. And you know what? For the first time in a very long time, we've seen Michael Cole being journalistically aggressive.
Yes. Normally he's quite submissive with it, and he doesn't really fight too much with what he's saying. He kind of lets people walk over him. This time he was very much like, no, this is the question I want to ask, and I'm asking it how I want to ask it. You're going to fucking answer it too.
Yeah, and there was no way of him skirting around the issue, apart from the fact that during this promo, a special gift of a Ford F-150 Raptor truck was wheeled into the arena with Cody Rhodes' branding all over it.
A very nice truck.
100%. I'd have killed for that thing.
And then, yeah, like you said, we went into a VT from The Rock in an airport next to his plane. Kind of telling Cody about, this was a gift for him, and as they both like driving on dusty roads, which I thought was a cheeky little comment in there.
Well, I took boiling everything down in this in this promo. It was very much a case that I got the impression that he was doing everything he could to try and almost guilt Cody into making the decision he wanted to make. It was a very emotionally blackmail heavy version of getting this done. And it stretched a bit far for me personally.
One thing that I didn't know what to make of it in the long run was the bit with the belt that Rox had made saying Cody's soul with the date of Dusty Rhodes' death on it. I was a little bit like, I'm not sure that was needed. Like that was quite a big heel move for something where they're not, for someone who's not remotely directly involved in the lead up to WrestleMania and Cody's match at the moment. That was quite a big thing to try and do. That's something you'd expect from a guy who knows he's got a match against Cody at WrestleMania, and he's just winding him up and trying to piss him off before they get in the ring in Las Vegas.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. But yeah, I mean, the entire thing at the end, we just left with an image of Cody Rhodes just looking completely dumbfounded and more confused than ever.
Pretty much, yeah.
I don't know if that gift did more to cement the decision that Cody Rhodes is due to make in 24 hours' time by the end of it, or whether it just caused further confusion.
Yeah, pretty much. It was definitely a confusing end to the episode. I'm out of notes. I'm out of things to discuss at this point when it comes to this episode of SmackDown. But I'll tell you one thing, I am really, really looking forward to Elimination Chamber now.
Oh, 100%. And you can catch all of our coverage for Elimination Chamber. We're breaking it down into 3 episodes in very much the similar fashion that we did with Royal Rumble, where we're doing the men's and women's Elimination Chamber as sort of live watch-alongs. You'll get our live reactions with it as we watch the episode back. And then we'll do a 3rd episode where we'll break down the unsanctioned match between Sami Zayn and every other Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, and every other match in between as well. And yeah, I mean, there's nothing else to say, but see you at Finishes and Factions does Elimination Chamber.
See you soon. Peace.
See you soon.